She was the kind of woman people noticed only after they had already passed by. Not because she was invisible, but because she never tried to demand attention. In places where voices were loud and confidence was often exaggerated, she stayed quiet. She listened more than she spoke. She worked more than she complained. And yet in that quiet life, she carried a deep love for her craft, something that had been with her for as long as she could remember. She lived a simple routine. Early mornings, long workdays, and evenings that ended with tired hands and a restless mind. Most people around her knew her only through that routine. To thee, the days following her celebrated performance were unlike anything she had experienced before. The energy from the crowd lingered in her mind, a vivid memory that reminded her of what dedication and perseverance could achieve. But now, she faced the next challenge, sustaining her growth and proving to herself that one moment of success was only part of a larger journey. She understood that, while admiration from others was gratifying, the real measure of achievement lay in her continued discipline, self-belief, and commitment to her craft. She returned to her routine with renewed focus, yet her perspective had shifted. The quiet hours of practice that had once been a solitary struggle now felt like an opportunity. Each session was a chance to refine her skills further, to explore nuances she had previously overlooked, and to challenge herself in ways that demanded both patience and courage. She approached her craft with a new intensity, balancing technical mastery with emotional depth. Understanding that true excellence combined both, people around her began to notice the difference. Colleagues, friends, and even casual acquaintances observed her confidence and poise. Realizing that her growth was not limited to a single performance, they saw a person who had endured doubt and ridicule, yet emerged stronger, more focused, and quietly inspiring. Some approached her for advice, hoping to learn from her experience, while others simply observed, internalizing lessons about patience, persistence, and integrity. She, however, remained humble. She knew that every step forward was earned through effort, not by expectation or praise. Humility became a guiding principle, allowing her to remain open to learning, to acknowledge areas for improvement, and to continue evolving. She recognized that arrogance could blind even the most talented individuals, and she refused to let confidence become overconfidence. Her focus was always inward, assessing her progress against her own standards rather than the judgments of others. During this period, she faced new challenges that tested her resilience. Opportunities arose that required her to perform under pressure, to navigate unfamiliar environments, and to respond to unexpected obstacles. Each situation demanded more than technical skill. It required emotional intelligence, adaptability, and composure. She relied on the strength she had cultivated over years of practice and reflection. Approaching every challenge with quiet determination and careful attention, the experiences were not without difficulty. She encountered moments of doubt, fatigue, and frustration. Tasks that seemed simple at first often revealed hidden complexities, and setbacks reminded her that growth was ongoing. Yet she had learned to view these moments not as failures, but as opportunities for refinement. Each obstacle was a teacher, each challenge a chance to deepen her understanding of both her craft and herself. Her perseverance became a rhythm, a steady pattern of effort, reflection, improvement. In her interactions with others, she demonstrated empathy and patience. She understood that everyone carried their own doubts, fears, and insecurities. Rather than dismissing or judging, she approached people with understanding, offering support and encouragement when appropriate. This approach reinforced her belief that true mastery was not only about individual skill, but also about the positive influence one could have on others through integrity. Composure and example, she also explored new avenues within her craft, experimenting with techniques, expressions, and presentations that pushed her beyond familiar territory. These explorations were sometimes uncomfortable, requiring vulnerability and courage. She faced the possibility of failure with a calm mind, understanding that risk was an essential component of growth. In doing so, she discovered new layers of creativity, insight, and resilience, deepening both her skill and her self-confidence. As time passed, the story of her journey began to reach a wider audience. People spoke not only of the remarkable performance that had captured attention, but also of the ongoing dedication and character that defined her path. She became a symbol of perseverance, patience, and quiet strength, inspiring others to pursue their goals despite doubt or criticism. Her journey illustrated that success was not instantaneous, but cultivated through consistent effort, resilience, and belief in oneself. She also reflected on the role of adversity in shaping her path. The mockery, skepticism, and doubt she had faced were not merely obstacles. They had been catalysts, motivating her to refine her skills and strengthen her resolve. She realized that difficulty often revealed hidden potential, that struggle could sharpen talent, and that persistence could transform fear into confidence. The lessons learned from adversity became a foundational part of her approach to life and her craft in her daily routine. She maintained a balance between rigorous practice and thoughtful reflection. She observed her progress, acknowledged her achievements, and identified areas for continued improvement. This cycle of effort and evaluation created a sense of purpose and direction, reinforcing her commitment to excellence. She learned to celebrate small victories, understanding that each step forward was part of a larger journey of growth and mastery. She also cultivated mindfulness and focus, recognizing that mental clarity was essential for sustained performance. Through meditation, visualization, and intentional reflection, she strengthened her ability to remain present and composed even under pressure. These practices enhanced her technical skill, emotional resilience, and overall effectiveness, allowing her to approach each opportunity with a calm, confident mind. Her influence extended beyond technical skill. People began to admire her integrity, humility, and dedication. She became a quiet mentor to those around her, demonstrating that true achievement was not about recognition or fame, but about continuous improvement, perseverance, and the courage to remain authentic. Her journey illustrated that leadership and inspiration often arise from consistency, dedication, and the quiet pursuit of excellence. Over time, she embraced opportunities to share her knowledge and experience more broadly. Workshops, discussions, and collaborations allowed her to guide others, passing on lessons learned through years of effort and reflection. She approached these opportunities with the same humility and focus that had defined her personal journey, understanding that teaching others reinforced her own growth and deepened her understanding of her craft. Through all of this, she never lost sight of the initial challenges that had shaped her path. The memory of being underestimated, laughed at, or dismissed remained a quiet reminder of her growth. It was a reminder that perseverance, preparation, and self-belief were powerful tools. These experiences reinforced her commitment to excellence, encouraged empathy for others, and strengthened her resolve to face future challenges with confidence and integrity. She recognized that her journey was ongoing, that mastery was never complete, and that growth required constant effort. Yet she also understood that the person she had become, a combination of skill, resilience, humility, and confidence, was a testament to what could be achieved through dedication and courage. Her story was not only about public recognition, but about internal transformation, demonstrating that true achievement begins within. As she moved forward, she remained focused on the principles that had guided her: persistent effort, thoughtful reflection, empathy, humility, and courage. These principles shaped her actions, decisions, and interactions, ensuring that her success was grounded in authenticity rather than external validation. She embraced every challenge as an opportunity to grow, every moment of doubt as a chance to strengthen her resolve, and every achievement as a step in a lifelong journey of learning and mastery. In the end, she understood that the journey from mockery to mastery was not defined by a single performance or moment of recognition. It was defined by the countless hours of practice, reflection, and perseverance that had built her skill and character. The true measure of her success lay not in the applause of others, but in the confidence, resilience, and integrity she had cultivated within herself. And with this understanding, she moved forward with a quiet assurance, ready to embrace all the challenges and opportunities that the future would bring. She was ordinary. Someone who showed up, did what was required, and went home. Nothing about her seemed special on the surface. That was exactly why people felt comfortable judging her without knowing her. When conversations turned to talent or skill, she usually stayed silent. Not because she lacked something to say, but because she had learned that words often invited doubt. On the rare occasions when she did mention her passion, the reactions were almost always the same. Polite smiles, short nods. And then, once she turned away, quiet laughter or raised eyebrows. No one said anything cruel to her face at first. It was worse than that. They simply did not believe her. Some thought she was pretending. Others assumed she was confused about her own abilities. A few openly joked that dreams like hers were meant for other people, not someone like her. They spoke as if they understood her limits better than she did. Each comment landed softly on the outside, but deeply inside her chest, left marks. She did not grow up surrounded by encouragement. Praise was rare in her world. Expectations were practical, not emotional. Do your work. Be responsible. Do not aim too high. Those were the lessons she absorbed over time. Still, something inside her refused to shrink completely. Even when doubt surrounded her, that inner voice stayed alive, whispering that she was more than what people assumed. There were moments when she questioned herself. Late at night, when exhaustion made her vulnerable, she wondered if everyone else might be right. Maybe she had misunderstood her own ability. Maybe passion alone was not enough. Those thoughts scared her more than any mockery because they came from within. But even on those nights, she never gave up entirely. She kept practicing. She kept learning, quietly, patiently. Her dedication happened behind closed doors, away from judgment. While others relaxed or scrolled through their phones, she focused on improving herself. She studied small details most people overlooked. She repeated the same movements again and again until they felt natural. No one clapped for her effort. No one even noticed. But she believed effort counted, even if it remained unseen. At work and in public spaces, she was often underestimated. People spoke over her. Decisions were made without asking her opinion. If she made a suggestion, it was sometimes ignored, only to be repeated later by someone else and praised. She noticed these things, but she did not react loudly. She stored the feeling quietly, telling herself that one day, her actions would speak for her. There was one place in particular where she felt this pressure most strongly. It was a space filled with people who liked to show confidence, even when it was not backed by skill. In that place, appearances mattered more than depth. People admired boldness, not patience. That environment made her feel small. Even though she had spent years building something real within herself, whenever she entered that space, she felt eyes measuring her, deciding what she was worth within seconds. Their judgment was quick and careless. To them, she was not someone who could surprise anyone. She was safe to dismiss. That belief made them comfortable. They laughed easily around her, never thinking she might be listening more closely than they realized. She often stood at the edge of conversations, serving. She learned how people behaved when they believed they were superior. She learned how easily confidence could turn into arrogance. And she learned something else too. Many of the loudest voices were hiding their own insecurities. That understanding gave her a strange kind of strength. She did not need to compete with them. She only needed to be true to herself. Still, the weight of being underestimated grew heavier over time. There were days when she wanted to speak up, to correct the assumptions, to defend herself. But she knew words would not change minds that were already closed. Experience had taught her that proof mattered more than explanation. So she waited. Not passively, but with purpose. Her patience was not weakness. It was preparation. Every hour she spent improving herself was an investment in a future moment she could not yet see clearly. She did not know when that moment would come, only that it would. That belief kept her going when laughter echoed behind her back and dismissive comments floated around her. People assumed she lacked ambition because she did not talk about it. They confused silence with emptiness. They believed that if someone truly had talent, it would announce itself loudly. They were wrong. Some things grow quietly, like roots beneath the soil, strengthening before breaking through the surface. One afternoon, a small incident hinted that her quiet world might soon change. A casual conversation turned into a careless joke at her expense. Someone laughed and suggested she would never be able to handle a real challenge. Others joined in, adding comments that felt light to them but heavy to her. The room filled with laughter that did not include her. She smiled weakly, as she always did, and said nothing. On the outside, she looked unaffected. On the inside, something shifted. The words replayed in her mind long after the laughter faded. Not because they hurt, but because they confirmed something she already knew. People would continue to underestimate her unless something forced them to stop. That night, she sat alone, replaying the moment again and again. She did not feel anger. She felt clarity. A quiet, steady clarity that surprised even her. She realized she was tired of shrinking to make others comfortable, tired of hiding something meaningful. Just because others were not ready to understand it, she did not make a dramatic decision or announce a bold plan. That was not her nature. Instead, she made a promise to herself. The next time doubt challenged her openly, she would not step back. She would not laugh it off. She would stand her ground, even if her voice shook. At that moment, she still did not know how or when that promise would be tested. She only knew that her life was slowly moving toward a moment where silence would no longer protect her. A moment where she would have to choose between remaining unseen or finally allowing herself to be judged for who she truly was. And somewhere deep inside, beneath years of quiet effort and hidden discipline, her confidence waited. Not loud, not proud, but solid. Ready for the day it would finally be called forward. The day arrived when she faced the kind of public humiliation that could have broken someone else completely. It started as a casual suggestion, a small challenge meant for amusement. People gathered around, curious and ready to laugh. They did not expect her to succeed. They wanted a show, a spectacle, and she was meant to be the punchline. At first, she felt her stomach tighten. Her hands grew clammy. Her mind raced with doubts, not because she had not prepared, but because the crowd seemed determined to see her fail. Laughter echoed around her before she had even begun. Each chuckle and whispered comment was like a stone thrown at her resolve. For a moment, she considered stepping away, telling herself it was not worth it. But deep inside, a small voice reminded her that this moment could not be ignored. This was the moment that could define her if she allowed it. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. The eyes around her were expectant, some amused, some skeptical. She felt the weight of every glance, every judgment pressing down on her. The noise of the crowd seemed louder than it was, each whisper and laugh amplified in her mind. It was overwhelming, but she forced herself to focus. She reminded herself that all the hours of preparation, all the quiet work done in solitude, had led to this point. It was time to rely on what she knew, not what others thought. The first moments were tense. She hesitated slightly, aware of the anticipation, but then she reminded herself that hesitation did not define her. She began, carefully at first, letting her skills speak through small, precise movements. The reaction from the crowd was immediate. A few eyebrows rose. A few mouths fell open. The laughter had paused, replaced by curiosity, though some still smirked, unwilling to believe what they were seeing. She ignored them. Every doubt cast in the room became fuel for her concentration. She had a task to complete, and nothing else mattered. As she continued, something unexpected began to happen. The room, once filled with mocking energy, started to change. People leaned forward, drawn in by the quiet strength of her performance. No one had anticipated this. The simplicity of her actions, the confidence in each movement, began to capture their attention. Laughter, the sound she had feared most, had faded. Instead, there was silence, tentative and watching. She realized then that she was no longer performing for them, but for herself. And in that shift, her fear began to lessen. The intensity of the crowd's gaze became almost tangible. Each person wanted to see if the momentary display was real or if it was a trick. But it was real. Every movement, every note, every gesture reflected years of practice and dedication. She felt a sense of clarity and calm she had not experienced before. The mockery that had haunted her for so long no longer held power. She could feel her own strength rising, steady and undeniable. It was a quiet triumph, but one that mattered deeply. Some members of the audience were still skeptical. Their expressions flickered between disbelief and amusement, not quite ready to admit that they had misjudged her. She noticed them, but she did not falter. She moved with purpose, each motion deliberate, each step building confidence. The crowd, even the doubtful ones, could not look away. There was something magnetic about her presence, something beyond skill. It was a mixture of determination, authenticity, and courage. The kind of presence that forces people to reconsider their assumptions. Midway through, a mistake almost broke her concentration. A misstep, small and fleeting, made her heart skip a beat. She could feel panic trying to creep in, but she remembered every late night, every repetition, every moment of preparation. She adjusted, recovered, and continued seamlessly. The room held its breath. That brief falter made her performance even more human, more relatable. People could see not just skill, but resilience. The laughter that had once filled the space was now replaced by a shared awe that grew quietly but unmistakably by the end. She had transformed the energy of the room completely. The same people who had expected to ridicule her were now silent, captivated. She finished her performance with a sense of completion. Not seeking approval, but aware that something profound had occurred. The air seemed heavier, charged with the realization that she had delivered something real, something unexpected. They had not anticipated this outcome, and that surprise had made it even more powerful. When the applause finally came, it was hesitant at first. People clapped cautiously, as if testing the reality of what had just happened. But then it grew, spreading through the room like wildfire. Hands met in a clamor of recognition and astonishment. Some faces showed regret for having doubted her. Others simply reflected the awe of witnessing someone break free from expectations. She stood quietly, absorbing the moment, not needing to shout or boast. The applause was not for vanity, it was for truth. For talent that had long been underestimated. Afterward, people approached her, some with apologies, some with admiration, others with questions. She answered calmly, with a gentle smile, showing no anger or resentment. Her demeanor spoke louder than words. She had not come to punish anyone for their doubts. She had come to reveal her own ability and integrity. And in doing so, she had earned respect the way it should always be, earned through action, not argument. That night she reflected on the events, understanding the magnitude of what had just occurred. She realized that public mockery, while painful, had prepared her for this very moment. Every moment of doubt, every whispered joke, had become fuel. They had underestimated her, but she had not underestimated herself. And in that realization, she felt an inner peace and strength that no amount of laughter could ever take away. From that day forward, people began to see her differently. She was no longer just a quiet presence in the background. She had shown that skill and determination could transform perception. The mockery that had once defined her public image was now replaced with anticipation, respect, and, in some cases, admiration. And for her, that was never about proving others wrong. It was about proving to herself that she could rise above expectation, that she could stand firm even when every eye was filled with doubt. It was a turning point, a moment that would be remembered not because it was loud or dramatic, but because it was real. She had faced public humiliation and turned it into a masterpiece. And in that, she had discovered a truth she would carry for the rest of her life, that the judgment of others is only as powerful as the belief you give it, and that true courage is quiet, persistent, and unwavering. After the incident that could have humiliated her completely, she found herself in a strange space. The memory of the laughter, the mocking whispers, and the doubtful glances did not leave her mind easily. But something inside had shifted. The fear that had gripped her earlier had softened, replaced by a quiet determination. She realized that the next step in her journey was not just about defending herself, it was about discovering the depth of her own potential. She began to retreat inward, not in fear, but in reflection. Days were spent revisiting every small mistake, every success, every moment that had led her to that point. Each memory was a lesson. Each practice, each repetition. Each quiet hour alone had laid the foundation for something far greater than she had allowed herself to see. She spent time not thinking about what others thought, but about what she could become if she fully embraced her skill. The silence she sought was deliberate. She avoided crowded spaces, the gossiping circles, and even casual conversations that might distract her focus. She wanted clarity. She wanted to listen to the voice inside that had always guided her. The one that had told her to keep going even when no one else believed. In this quiet, she felt the first stirrings of something she had not felt before, confidence that was not loud or boastful, but steady and growing. In this period, she worked in ways that people would not see. She refined her technique, sharpened her timing, and explored nuances she had previously ignored. She challenged herself, set goals higher than before, allowed herself to fail in private so that public performance would feel effortless. There were moments of frustration when progress seemed slow, when perfection felt just out of reach. But she had learned to see frustration not as defeat, but as a signal that she was pushing beyond her comfort zone. She also began to study others, not to imitate, but to understand. She observed those who had succeeded in the same field, noting their habits, their ways of handling pressure, and their mistakes. She did not envy them. She admired them and used their experiences to shape her own path. Every observation added a new layer to her understanding, helping her grow in subtle ways that only time could reveal. The turning point during this inward journey came unexpectedly. One quiet afternoon, she performed in front of a mirror, imagining the same crowd that had once mocked her. This time, instead of trembling, she felt control. Each movement was deliberate, each note precise, each gesture expressive. She could feel her own power and skill radiating through her body. For the first time, she realized that what others thought they saw was irrelevant. Her ability was hers alone, and it did not need validation to exist. The confidence she began to build was not sudden or flashy. It grew in small increments, like a flame gradually warming a cold room. She noticed changes in how she held herself, how she moved, and how she interacted with the world. People began to sense it too. While she was still quiet, there was a subtle aura of presence that drew attention. She was no longer someone to be dismissed casually. Even those who had doubted her could feel that something had shifted, though they could not yet name it. During this time, she also started to prepare for what would come next. She knew another challenge would appear, one that would demand not only her skill, but also her composure. She imagined scenarios, practiced responses, and envisioned herself moving through the pressures without faltering. This preparation was as much mental as it was physical. She trained her mind to remain calm, her focus unwavering, and her determination unshakable. Every imagined failure was a rehearsal for success. Her days became structured in a way that maximized growth. She combined practice with reflection, effort with observation. She measured progress in small victories. A note held perfectly, a movement executed flawlessly, a moment of doubt overcome. Each victory, though minor in isolation, accumulated into something powerful. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, she became stronger and more certain of herself. The mockery that had once haunted her became a distant memory, one that no longer had the power to define her, yet she remained humble. She understood that growth was ongoing, that mastery was never complete. This humility was part of her strength. It allowed her to remain open to learning, to adapt, and to continue improving without the arrogance that can blind many before they are ready. She welcomed critique that was constructive and ignored opinions that were irrelevant or dismissive. Her focus was always on progress, not on appearances. The people around her began to notice subtle changes. Some were confused by the calm confidence she displayed. Others could sense that she was no longer easily shaken by criticism. A few began to treat her with more respect, though not openly. They were not yet fully aware of the transformation occurring inside her. She did not mind. Recognition was not her goal. Skill, growth, and self-respect were as the days turned into weeks. She realized that her journey was no longer just about proving herself to others. It had become a journey of self-discovery. She had found a reservoir of strength, patience, and focus that she had never tapped into before. She learned that moments of public mockery could be transformed into fuel for improvement. She learned that preparation and quiet dedication could turn fear into confidence. And most importantly, she learned that her value was not determined by others' perception, but by her own commitment to her craft. Toward the end of this period, she began to envision the moment when she would step into a public space again. This time, she would not be defensive or anxious. She would be ready. She would show, without words, that skill and dedication could transcend expectation. The crowd that once laughed would see not just her talent, but her resilience, her perseverance, and her quiet courage. And she knew that the reaction would not be about proving them wrong. It would be about revealing the truth of who she truly was. Her preparation had not been easy. There were moments of doubt, moments when the old fear returned, threatening to undo the progress she had made. But each time, she reminded herself of the promise she had made, to stand firm, to face challenges, and to let her actions speak. That promise became her anchor, guiding her through moments of uncertainty. She understood now that fear could exist without controlling her. It could be a signal, not a chain. In this period of silent preparation, she became more than just skilled. She became aware of her own presence, her impact, and her responsibility to herself. Every practice session, every mental rehearsal, and every moment of reflection contributed to a growing confidence that was subtle but undeniable. She felt ready not for validation, but for the opportunity to act, to perform, and to reveal her true ability by the time the next challenge approached. She had transformed in ways that were invisible to the casual observer. She had grown not only in skill, but in character, patience, and composure. The quiet woman who had once been dismissed was no longer defined by the expectations of others. She had become someone who could face judgment, criticism, and doubt without fear. She had learned that the real power lay in preparation, perseverance, and belief in oneself. And in that realization, she found peace. She understood that public recognition or applause, while gratifying, was not the ultimate goal. The true achievement was the transformation within the confidence, skill, and self-respect she had cultivated through effort and resilience. She was no longer simply a quiet presence in the background. She was ready to step into the light, not for approval, but for the fulfillment of her own potential. That readiness, born of quiet strength and relentless preparation, would define the next chapter of her story. The day of the performance arrived with a quiet tension in the air. She stood at the edge of the space, taking in the faces around her. Some looked curious, some skeptical, and some openly amused. The memory of past mockery lingered, but it no longer held power over her. Instead, it reminded her why she had prepared so carefully, why she had spent countless hours refining her skills, and why she had refused to let doubt define her as she stepped forward. There was a pause, a collective breath held by the crowd. People expected hesitation, nervousness, perhaps even failure. They were unprepared for calm determination, for the quiet command of presence she now carried. Each step she took was deliberate, confident, and measured. She felt the weight of anticipation but did not let it sway her. The moment belonged not to them, but to her. She began slowly easing into her performance with careful precision. The first movements or notes were modest, meant to draw attention without overwhelming. Some faces remained skeptical, but others shifted, noticing the focus and intent behind her actions. Her skill was no longer hidden. It moved naturally, almost effortlessly, yet carried an intensity that demanded attention. The room seemed to lean in, curiosity replacing laughter. As she continued, the initial quiet transformed. Each motion, each sound, each carefully considered gesture told a story. The audience felt a shift, though they did not immediately understand it. Her performance was not flashy, but it was compelling. It was honest, complete, and intentional. People began to sense that they were witnessing something rare, something that could not be dismissed by simple judgment or superficial evaluation. Her presence filled the space. Even those who had mocked her before could not look away. There was a magnetism to her focus, a clarity to her purpose. Every element of the performance reflected years of practice, hours of self-reflection, and the courage to persist when the world had doubted her. The skill she displayed was undeniable, but it was the quiet strength behind it that truly captivated the audience. At moments, she allowed herself subtle flourishes, small demonstrations of artistry that revealed her depth. Each was met with a pause in the crowd, a recognition that they were seeing someone who had transcended expectation. Gasps of surprise, whispered acknowledgments, and widened eyes punctuated the performance, though she did not seek their reaction. She was immersed fully in her craft, letting it speak louder than words ever could. A particularly challenging section approached, one that tested both her precision and her composure. For a brief instant, she felt the old flutter of nerves, the echo of past doubts. But she centered herself, recalling the countless hours of preparation, the failures in private that had strengthened her, and the promise she had made to remain steadfast. She executed the section flawlessly, with a confidence that radiated outward, and the room responded in a silent, collective awe. The tension in the air shifted completely. Where once there had been expectation of failure, there was now anticipation, wonder, and disbelief. People who had laughed, who had whispered doubts, were now watching with rapt attention. They could sense the transformation, though they could not articulate it. They were seeing someone who had not only mastered skill, but had mastered herself. The performance was no longer simply about technique. It was about presence, resilience, authenticity. Time seemed to bend as she moved through the latter part of the performance. Every gesture, every note, every breath carried meaning. She was fully present, yet effortlessly natural. The audience leaned forward, caught in a tension that held them as if suspended. There was no room for distraction, no space for casual judgment. All that remained was the truth of her performance, shining clearly through every motion. As the finale approached, the room felt electric with anticipation. People could feel that something extraordinary was about to conclude, though they did not yet know how. She executed the final sequence with poise, precision, and emotional depth. The last note lingered, the final gesture held, and silence followed. For a brief, suspended moment, the room existed in a state of pure awe. No one moved, no one spoke. The weight of what they had witnessed settled over them quietly, insistently, leaving an impression that would not fade easily. Then, slowly the applause began. At first tentative, almost cautious, as if people were testing reality. Then louder, growing steadily until the room was filled with the sound of recognition, admiration, and genuine awe. Hands clapped, voices cheered, and eyes shone with respect that had once seemed impossible. She stood still, absorbing the reaction without fanfare or boast. Her satisfaction came from the truth she had revealed, not from the applause itself. People approached her afterward with a mix of emotions, admiration, disbelief, and regret for having doubted her. She responded with calm gratitude, acknowledging their recognition without resentment. She did not seek revenge for past mockery. She had already triumphed through her skill and composure. The performance had spoken for her, proving what words never could. Her quiet strength, her patience, and her dedication were now undeniable. Reflecting later, she understood the magnitude of the moment. It was not simply about winning recognition or silencing skeptics. It was about demonstrating that perseverance, preparation, and belief in oneself could overcome doubt and mockery. The performance had been a manifestation of all the work she had done in solitude. All the hours of effort, all the moments of quiet courage, and in that realization, she felt an unshakable sense of fulfillment. She also realized that the experience had changed her. Public performance, once a source of anxiety, had become a space of empowerment. The audience's doubt, which had once weighed heavily, now underscored her own strength. Each gesture, each note, each movement reflected not just talent, but the resilience she had cultivated over years of dedication. The laughter that had once haunted her memory was replaced with respect and acknowledgement, a transformation that felt profound and lasting. This performance became a turning point, not only for how others perceived her, but for how she perceived herself. She had faced the challenge, navigated the fear, and revealed the depth of her ability. And in doing so, she had discovered a truth that would guide her future: that true mastery is not measured by external validation, but by the courage to act with authenticity, discipline, and unwavering commitment. The day ended with a lingering sense of achievement. The audience dispersed, carrying the memory of a performance that had exceeded every expectation. Some spoke in hushed tones, still trying to process what they had seen. Others approached her, expressing admiration that bordered on awe. And through it all, she remained composed, fully aware that the most important recognition had already been won within herself. She knew that future challenges would come, that doubts would arise again, and that criticism would continue to exist. But she also knew that she had discovered an inner strength that could not be shaken. The performance had been a declaration not of superiority over others, but of mastery over herself. And that mastery, quiet yet undeniable, would continue to shape her journey in ways that no mockery could ever diminish. The applause eventually settled, leaving a quiet energy in the room that was both powerful and humbling. She stood there, taking in the faces of the crowd, many of whom were still processing what they had just witnessed. Their eyes reflected a mixture of surprise, admiration, and, in some cases, regret for having doubted her. She noticed the subtle shifts in posture, the way shoulders straightened, and the hesitant nods of acknowledgement. It was a silent recognition, but it felt profound. She allowed herself a small, calm smile. Not a smile seeking validation, but one of quiet satisfaction. She had not performed to prove herself to anyone else, yet in doing so, she had earned respect, the way true achievement always comes, through action, dedication, and authenticity. The journey that had begun with mockery, fear, and doubt had now reached a moment of triumph. And it was both unexpected and deeply fulfilling. People approached her, offering congratulations, expressing admiration, and asking questions about her process. She answered with the same quiet composure that had carried her through the performance. She spoke honestly about the years of preparation, the hours of practice, and the moments of self-doubt she had faced along the way. Her words carried sincerity, and the audience could feel the depth of her experience. It was clear that this success was not a fluke, but the result of sustained effort, discipline, and unwavering belief in herself. Some individuals, who had previously laughed or dismissed her, now seemed to struggle with how to address her. There was a mixture of shame and newfound respect in their expressions. Yet she felt no anger or desire for retribution. The purpose of her performance had never been to humiliate those who doubted her, but to reveal her true capability. In doing so, she had transformed not just their perception of her, but her own understanding of her strength and resilience. The impact of the performance extended beyond the immediate room. Stories began to circulate about the woman who had turned mockery into mastery. People shared accounts of her skill, her composure, the way she had quietly transformed an environment filled with doubt into one of admiration. The narrative spread because it was authentic and remarkable. It resonated with those who had ever faced doubt or ridicule, reminding them that perseverance and belief in oneself could overcome even the harshest judgment. For her, the aftermath was as important as the performance itself. She realized that respect earned in this way was different from superficial praise. It was grounded in truth, honesty, and observable skill. It could not be taken away by rumor or opinion. She felt a sense of empowerment that was not dependent on external validation, but rooted in the knowledge that she had faced her fears, challenged the assumptions of others, and emerged with integrity and tact. Over the following days, she reflected on the journey that had led her to this point. The memory of mockery that had once weighed heavily upon her now felt distant, almost insignificant. Each moment of doubt, each whispered comment had been transformed into motivation, Every hour spent in quiet practice, every effort to improve herself, every internal struggle had prepared her for this defining moment. She understood that challenges and criticism, when approached with patience and resilience, could become powerful catalysts for growth. Her relationships with those around her subtly changed. People who had dismissed her began to seek her opinion and insight. They approached her with a mixture of respect and curiosity, recognizing her expertise and her calm confidence. She navigated these interactions with grace, offering guidance without condescension, demonstrating that true mastery was paired with humility. Her presence became a quiet source of inspiration for those who observed her journey. Even from a distance, in private, she continued to reflect on the lessons learned. She understood that the journey of growth and recognition was ongoing. Talent and skill alone were not enough. Courage, perseverance, and the willingness to act despite fear were equally crucial. She also realized that success could be fleeting if not nurtured by continued effort and reflection. The performance was a milestone, not a conclusion. It marked a moment in an evolving story of self-discovery and achievement. She began to set new goals, not motivated by the need for approval, but by a desire to continue challenging herself. These goals were ambitious, designed to stretch her abilities and deepen her understanding of her craft. Each new objective carried with it the same quiet intensity and dedication that had defined her journey from the beginning. The foundation of discipline, patience, and resilience she had built allowed her to approach these challenges with confidence and focus. The transformation she experienced also influenced her perception of the world. She became more attuned to the subtleties of human behavior, understanding that doubt and criticism often stemmed from insecurity or misunderstanding. She learned to navigate interactions with empathy, recognizing that not everyone would immediately see the value of dedication and skill. At the same time, she remained steadfast in her own belief, ensuring that external opinions did not dictate her self-worth or direction. Her story gradually inspired others who had faced similar struggles. People began to share her example as a testament to the power of perseverance and quiet determination. It was a narrative that resonated widely, not because of spectacle, but because it was relatable and authentic. Many found encouragement in her journey, realizing that challenges, mockery, and doubt could be transformed into opportunities for growth and recognition.